Be a little music play, and then
Well, I learned from a friend that showed me to watch instead of asking why. Start asking why not. Time flies when you're having fun. Time flies when you're lying in the sun. Bit by bit, the older that we get, the faster it tick 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 ticks. Time flies. Whoa, whoa, time flies.
time flies when you're having fun. Thanks, Dennis, for that song again this week. Well, it's good to be back. I missed last week. Went on a little road trip with my oldest son, Landon. But I've got Logan Fraker here with me today doing the technical work. Logan, thanks for coming in again, helping us out. And we've got our guest today is Wayne Martin. Wayne, welcome.
Thank you.
Looking forward to this. Known Wayne pretty much all my life. I've been around Marshfield. He grew up here and around the square, and everybody kind of knows Wayne. Spent 39 years at Webster Electric, and so he truly did help keep the lights on around our community, along with a bunch of other great folks out there. So we're gonna have some fun. Want to make sure that everybody has a good Christmas. We still will plan to do a show next Saturday, which is the 23rd, and we may try to have a special Christmas show. I don't know. We'll see what we can come up with. So be sure and tune in for that. But we really appreciate everybody's support. I get comments throughout the week if I'm out and about at the grocery store or wherever. And matter of fact, Wayne and I were talking out at Orchland. He said, "Hey, I've been watching your podcast." And I said, "Well, good. You can be on it next week." So, so if you don't want to be on it, don't tell me about it. But we love to have different folks and different walks of life share their story, share their history of growing up in Marshfield, Webster County. Doesn't matter. You didn't really have to go to school here. That's a nice twist if you did, but many of them have children that went here or their parents went here or whatever, and that's fine too. So, well, Wayne, let's get started. We're going to start at the beginning like we always do. Talk a little bit about, when you were born, your folks, your grandparents, I know were really instrumental in your life. Growing up over on the west side of the square, sort of behind the square there, and just kind of get us started out today.
Well, I come into this world at Sleeping, Missouri, at September 27, 1942. Dillard and Gladys Martin were my parents, and sometime in the early parts of my life, my mother got real bad sick, and she moved back to Marshfield with Fred and Martha, which were her parents. And a lot of stuff in my early life I don't understand and didn't know, but on the west side of the square, I spent the entire 21 years of my life.
Yeah. How old were you when you actually moved to Marshfield? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Yeah,
but I like 3 or 4.
Yeah, something like that. Before you can remember.
Yeah.
And your grandparents' last name was?
Stigall.
Stigall. Yeah. Okay. Well, and you lived kind of where the library is now?
Back to where the library is, where the house was, and I was raised there.
Right. So this would have been late 40s, maybe.
Yeah.
Late 40s, the war was over, probably.
War was going on, I think. My mom got real sick because she had a bone disease and couldn't afford doctors and couldn't find anybody, and she got bed fast.
Yeah. And so your grandma and grandpa kind of helped raise you, and I know you've talked really highly of them in the past to me about it. And so kind of tell us a little bit about growing up there around the square. What'd you do, and who'd you run with? What other boys were around that you played with? What'd you do?
Well, Charles Smith we were neighbors, and I was with him about every day, and I don't know. I was on a bicycle and run all over the square, and I don't know. It was somewhere 9, 10, or 11 years old. I walked out west of town to Guy Dugan's house. Always was curious and liked being around livestock. And
Well, that's about where the clinic is, where the Emergency Clinic
Emergency
is.
Clinic
Okay,
is,
yeah,
yes.
just so people know.
And Whitfield Dugan was standing there and walked out and said, greeted me, and "What are you doing? What do you want?" I said, "I'm looking for a job." And he said, "Well, what can you do?" And I said, "About anything." And He took me out back. There was a big, long, white barn back there. And he took me out there and put me on the end of a pitchfork and started cleaning that barn. That was the longest barn I think I ever
Be careful
seen.
what you ask for. You might get it
But
right.
I got her cleaned out. And I was with him, probably somewhere in the neighborhood about 15 years.
Is that right?
Yeah, he taught me a lot about livestock, how to doctor.
And that was of course, that was the highway. They're right there on old Route 66.
Yeah.
And didn't have 44 yet, so you had traffic there and lots of activity, a lot of people to watch and see and so forth.
Yes.
And it was just past the Y intersection, of course.
Yeah.
So I guess Carl Young's would have been
Yeah.
open there
There.
by then. What else? What else around town did you have any fun? Did you and the boys?
Oh,
you
yeah.
and Charlie Smith have any
Yeah,
fun?
we, wintertime we done a lot of sledding. We went to the park sledding.
Yeah.
We went to Pine Street. I used to be the Greyhound bus route to come in town, and we had a one-man city street department. His name was Joe Bateman.
Yeah.
And
Remember
we'd
Joe.
have so many kids on the Pine Street over, he'd have to shut that street down. And
Yeah.
and we just, you just kind of had to make your own fun. And
Yeah. That was the business route. That was Route 66 business loop. Come down Pine, went around the square, and then went on out.
And they was trying to get to the old building that's now the southeast part of the new courthouse. Is where the bus stopped and picked its people up.
Yeah.
But we had so many people on that. It was a hill slick, and we could have a ball.
Yeah. And Pine Street was about, well, I guess there wasn't much. There was a farm. Wasn't there a farm just east of that? The old, I forget the name of it. I had somebody on the other day. We were talking about that. But
They were,
big farm there.
In fact, Stanley Cuttamackle bought the farm, and he
Yeah.
developed all that back there. The old man was
Whitehall. I don't remember.
I want to say
Yeah.
his last name was Derry. He was a painter,
Okay.
and he had Jersey cattle.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for the FFA, he would give a Jersey heifer every year to some person, and they'd give him a Jersey heifer. And him and a guy by the name of Jameson done a lot of painting around over there.
Okay.
He owned all that farmland
Yeah.
back there where all those houses are, and Stanley Cuttamackle developed all that.
Tom Fars, who was talking about
Yeah.
the farm there that bordered Locust Street and Olive Street and
Well, it went back to whatever street that is, and then
Burford.
the next over was a local golf course.
Yeah, right.
Had all the same greens and stuff.
Yeah. And then the cattle hump road. Do you remember that? Julian Street that went on through there where
That was further
on out.
Yeah.
What about school? You obviously, I guess you walked to school probably.
Yes, I did.
And what was it like going in this building for 12
It
years?
was just going to school. It was just going to school.
Tell me about where was elementary at?
Elementary was on the east end of the school, and the principal was right in the middle, and then all the high school was on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
The gym was underneath the elementary school.
So they still had the old gym. They didn't build the new one until 54, and you would have started school somewhere probably 48 or
Yes.
something like that. And so my dad graduated in 48, and they still had the old gym. And the elementary school was above it, 6 grades. So about halfway, about 6th grade, 7th grade, they built the new gym.
Yes.
Did a lot of remodeling around here.
Thought it was the most beautiful building I ever seen.
Yeah. They had a bond proposal for the gym. We may have talked about this, but I think it's $100,000, and the voters passed it, and it was a big deal for the community.
Oh,
in
it
those
was.
days.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So high school, you were working a lot, working with the Dugans,
Yes.
and then you said you got a job then somewhere else in high school, right? The stockyards.
Yeah, I worked at Union Stockyards every summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked there, and then I worked for the Dugans on the weekends, and then I got the job to go work for the State Highway Department and maintenance out here. I worked there for a while, and then I got transferred from there to the office in Springfield. And for somebody that's worked out all their life,
Didn't like that.
I didn't like that office
So
at
now
all.
you started there after high school.
Yes.
Yeah, the highway
Yes.
department. So you graduated then in 1960, and who were some of your classmates you graduated with?
Oh, Gary Holland, Sonny Brown, Sue McFadden, Carolyn Bell was the last women's last name was changed, but
Yeah.
Billy Price and
Yeah.
had a good basketball team.
Yeah.
Senior year.
Yeah. Um, what businesses around the square? I know we've talked about this. We talked about this with Tom, but what businesses stick out in your mind? What were some of your favorite places to go, to shop or to eat or whatever?
Oh, well, all the kids. I had the sweet shop over there. That was always the kids' hangout.
Yeah.
And Saturday night in Marshfield was alive. I mean, you had the Ritz Theater double feature, and Sanitary Barber Shop was over on Crittenden. They'd stay open till 9 o'clock. You had 50 cents a haircut.
Yeah.
And they'd be standing in the room only and are waiting on a haircut. About 6 barbers were working.
Yeah.
And but Marshfield was alive. Sheriff. In my early years, the sheriff lived up in the courthouse, and he kind of kept the older generation underhand. And
Isom would have been the sheriff.
Yes,
A lot of your kid childhood.
Yes.
How about we mentioned before the show here, we talked about Carl Burke was
Yes.
Tell us about kind of what Carl did to help you out and some of the folks
Oh,
around.
Carl Burke purchased the Marshfield Auto Supply, and I was broke and didn't have any, and I had a girlfriend, and I had to date her, I had to go get her, and Carl had loaned me his car, and I'd on the weekends, and I run little errands for him, and he was just a great person to me.
Yeah. And of course, we had his son Eric Burke on our very first show back in the summer, and Eric told me, he said, if you can get Wayne Martin to come on, get him to come, and that was back in July. He said he's a great storyteller, and he's got lots of fun stories that he can share with you, and he looked up to you because he was hung around his dad's store and everything, and he lived up here around the square as well. He's a little.
He was a good kid.
Quite a bit younger than you, but spoke very highly of you. And then so you finally was able to buy a car then.
Yeah.
All right.
I finally, I had Joe Smith kept me in the cattle business. I mean, he pretty cheap. Like he had the land over there. Kind of on. I forget what street it's on. Over by kind of northwest of his house. He owns some property where the senior citizens is right now.
His house was where Dee Dee Hamilton is now.
Yes. And
of course, Charlie, your buddy, was his son. And David was his son. Yeah.
Right. And then there was 2 girls, but he had that little plot of land over there, and me and Charles both had steers over there, and of course Joe started me out, pretty expense free on the steer, and we bought it and we fed and we showed in the fat stock show, and of course I loved being in the agriculture business, and so I had enough steers that finally there was a car lot out there on the highway, and I found me a car that like anybody, it was the first one, I just couldn't do without it. So I bought a 1954 Ford, get $450 for it. And me and my present bride, we drove the wheels off of it.
This would have been about, what, 58 or 6 or 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you found a gal from Niangua.
I did, on a blind date.
Tell us about that.
I was working for Dugan's, and I had a good friend at Niangua named Jerry Clare.
Mm-hmm.
And he called me and he said, I've got a girl down here. Would you go out with her? And I said, well, I guess I'm pretty open right now. So anyway, we set the date up, and I had to work late feeding and whatever. And I called him and I said, well, I'm not going to be able to meet at the time. I said, could you go get her? And so he did. And I walked him home, went home and cleaned up a little bit and walked up across the square. And she was sitting in the back seat, and that light hit her, and
That did it, right?
Yep.
That was it.
Yep.
That was it. Well, that that's pretty remarkable. She's the one, and she's
June
still
the 1st, it'll be 60 years.
60 years. That's awesome, Wayne. That's a great story, and she certainly come from a great family and good Niangua family. And
Oh
so
yeah,
forth.
her dad liked me very well. I was a good hard aunt.
Yeah,
I
good.
work, I work cheap.
Well, that's a little benefit for him
We
on
put
that.
up lots of hay, and I doctored cattle for him.
So you and she dated quite a while then before you got married.
5
actually.
years.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So you graduated. You're dating her. You started working at the highway department right after you graduated, and then Uncle Sam called, right?
Uncle Sam.
So
sent
tell
me
us
a-
about that.
Yeah, Uncle Sam sent me a love letter.
Yeah.
Like I went down there to be honest to find out when they was going to drive me. I knew it was going to happen, and
This was 64.
yes,
Like you told me.
and the letter beat me home, and so we were trying to schedule our wedding, and so Uncle Sam called, and I went. March the 4th, I think, was in '64 when I had to report. And so anyway, I went through basic training and got out, and I had 11 days delay en route from Fort Leonard Wood to White Sands Missile Range, and I had no earthly idea where White Sands Missile Range was.
Yeah.
I'd never been out of Webster County. So I asked her, I said, do you want to wait? You want to do it now, or do you want to wait till I get out? And she made the decision now.
Yeah.
So we got married on a Monday night, and I left on a Wednesday, went to New Mexico and stayed a year, and did not see her for a year.
Man, that's about like Pat Abbott's story here we had on a few weeks ago. Got married, didn't see her for a year.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Then I come back and got her. Yeah, I was after after a year. I come back and got her and took her out there with me to live, and she loved it out there.
Yeah.
She'd stayed, but I was wanting to see those rocks again.
There wasn't any cattle out there, was
No, well it was, but it's a different world.
there? Yeah. We don't really think about that, but of course Vietnam had just kind of getting started,
Yes.
right? I mean, 64.
If I'd have had another 6 months to go, I'd have had to leave her and
yeah,
go.
yeah. So you sort of beat the height of the war,
Yeah.
which was good. But on the other hand, you just got married and you didn't. It's just amazing that they didn't let you have a weekend pass or two.
All of us guys that was out there in the service we had every radio on because we was afraid that they was gonna lock it down to where nobody could go home. So,
Yeah, sure, sure.
They never did, but we was sure scared of it.
Mhm, yeah. Wow. And then, of course, President Kennedy had already got killed, so the war really escalated after that. 65, 66. I mean, it was moving really fast then. So, but you were in how long?
I was in 2 years.
2 years. Okay. So you get out in 66, you come back home, you and her, and went back to the highway shed?
Yes.
Or highway department? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And tell us, kind of pick up from there.
I kind of got itchy feet, and I wasn't very happy with what I was doing, and so I went shopping, and Show Me Power was there, and I went and applied for a job as a lineman with Show Me Power, and didn't really know what I was getting into, but I just liked the words, and so one morning we'd bought a house over on the west side of town, and one morning about daylight, the doorbell rang, and Hiram Hoover was standing there.
Mhm.
And he said, are you serious about becoming a lineman? And I said, yes, sir. And he said, Hugh Bennett, it was manager of the Webster Electric. He said he's getting ready to hire somebody. Go see him.
Mhm.
Well, I had a little clout and didn't really realize it at the time, but my mother, all the time I was going to school, made dresses and sewed for people.
Yeah.
And that's how she put me through school. Well, she sewed for Hugh Bennett's wife.
Thelma.
So I had a little
Wow.
clout,
Huh.
you know.
Isn't that amazing?
And then Judy's mom and I think Herman Vestal was on the board at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and Judy's mom and
We're friends.
Mrs. Vestal were very good
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that's all the time.
Well, that's great. So they
But it
hired
was,
you. So now who else at that? Let's see. That'd be 1968, roughly.
yeah.
I think. So who all was working at Web? Who did you work with in those early days?
I
Webster.
worked with Keith Renner, Paul Atkinson. He was from Odin. Bethel Barnett and Ray Russ. That's who I was on the line.
So
who I worked with.
There were 5 linemen in all of Webster.
Yeah, and on the service trucks, Arthur Rowland and Philip Ragsdale
Mm-hmm.
was on the service trucks at that time.
Yeah.
Pete Smith was the line superintendent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And of course, I mean, total employees out there might have been 20 or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's probably what, 100 and I don't know,
It's,
whatever.
it's
Yeah.
much bigger.
Amazing. But Show Me Power took care of Marshfield in those days.
Yes.
Where back then, or now,
Yes, they
Webster
had
the city.
inside city limits. They had Marshfield, Niangua, Diggins, Portland, and Rogersville.
Okay.
And then I don't know what all took place, but all of a sudden they wanted to be strictly transmission lines,
Wholesaler,
and
yeah.
they wanted to get rid of all this. So we took Webster Electric took all of the towns
cities.
over. Yeah.
And I'm sure really increased in size and numbers
Oh
after
yeah.
that.
All except employees.
Yeah, did he?
So,
Oh, well, you saw a lot of growth in your career, that's for sure. And you stayed with them for 39
years.
Yeah, so that would have been, what was that? About 17?
I
2017 maybe?
well, while I was out there on the line, we had some people retire. Arthur went on to, we got another service truck and what have you. And
Yeah.
anyway, they come to me one day and handed me just no experience needed, you might say, handed me the clipboard and put me in a truck and said, you're on service crew right now by yourself.
Yeah.
So I was doing collections and reading meters, and if trouble call come in, I had to go work it, and I'd done that for 26 years.
26 years, huh? And then at the end, you were
I was staking
engineer,
for,
yeah.
for the tail end.
So I was looking, that'd be 2007 is when you actually retired.
Yeah.
So you've been out 16 years, yeah. Time flies, right?
It was a good life.
You betcha. And you told me that. You said if you had to do over, you'd do the same.
Yes, sir.
You thought that much at Webster.
Yes, sir.
Good people. Well, tell me about horses. You're a horse guy. The rodeo. You really, for how many years did you supervise the Marshfield Rodeo?
17 years.
17 years. You took your vacations
2 weeks more vacation to work.
and worked that.
Yeah.
And graded the arena, the whole
Toughest
deal.
job I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Getting that arena right.
Yeah, I bet it was.
It was impossible.
Well, they're doing, tractor pulls and demolition derbies.
Well,
you got to get in there
Mother
and rake
Nature-
all that metal up.
Several times Mother Nature wasn't too good to me. We'd get some rain, but that's just part of it.
Part of it. Well, you certainly put the Marshfield Rodeo on the map, because I remember when they started that as a way to help make the 4th of July celebration even bigger. And then, of course, now they've combined it and the fair together, which, good or bad, that's how it is. But you spent a lot of time down there.
Well, I liked it.
Yeah.
I've done some previous. I'd had another rodeo or two in town, and they come to me, and I didn't do to make it what it was. I didn't do nothing, just work. And all put some things together that made the public like, but as far as me doing anything to make it what it was, I did not.
Yeah, but for not being paid, you just spent a lot of hours and a lot of labor and time and so forth, and all the people that do the fairs and the rodeos.
I worked on it off and on for a year to get it to work.
I bet you did.
Making phone calls and getting stuff in and getting it right, and going through Portland and getting them guys over here. Without them, it would have been
for the cleanup and the setup.
It would have been hard. But I loved it, and And all good things have to come to an end.
That's right. That's true. Well, I heard a story that you broke your leg once bull riding.
Yeah, I did.
Tell us about that.
I wanted to rodeo, and I couldn't afford the rodeo. And the only thing that I could afford was an old bull rope. And Dale Burks, he had the AAA feed company and whatever, and he had the Timberlake Ranch. And Dale Burks went into the stock contracting business and had some Sunday afternoon rides out there and
At Timberlake.
And of course I couldn't afford a good. I mean, I'm a horse nut, but I couldn't afford the kind of horse that I had to have or do what they wanted to do, and I could afford an old bull rope, and it cost $10 to enter bull riding. So Judy always tells everybody she married a bull rider. We was at Brighton, Missouri one night. I was entered up in the bull riding and went over there and ended up in an ambulance and went and had my leg broke. She got to ride in the ambulance and babysat me and then my mother, we kind of had to pay all the hospital on it, or she did, I guess. Mom put a stop to the rodeoing, but in a sense, I never did quit. I was always looking for a good horse to break and, you know, go with team roping and
So you were a young man when that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget, seemed me like it was about 1960 when that happened.
Yeah.
We wasn't married.
I see.
And she just with me and she stayed with me. But, I've had many bones broke since then and bruises and stuff, you know. That's just the life of a cowboy that I tried to be.
Yeah. And then I heard another story about one time when you went snow skiing.
I was in the service, and there's a mountain over there by Rio Dosa called Sierra Blanca. And it's where everybody in the wintertime goes snow skiing. So me and Judy was with me and some boys, we decided we're going to go snow skiing. Ain't never been on these things in my life. So we go up there and we rent us some skis. Well, I found me a place that was very flat, and that's where I was at and where I wanted to be. Well, come to find out, this is where they give classes. So, you know, if you ain't paid, you get, you know. Well, they got this mountain here that's just straight up, and they got this lift. And so we're tough, you know, me and the boys, and we got the skis. And so once you get this thing under your behind, there ain't no turning back. You go. And it's the same way when you get off.
Yeah.
You don't have to say, wait a minute, you know.
Not a switch.
No. So I get to the top, I go up to the top of this thing and get up here, and they just people standing everywhere. And so you've been to the bowling alley?
Yeah.
And you get a strike?
Yeah.
Well, I'm the bowling ball. We get here, and I've got this thing under my behind, and I think, hey, these people got to get out of the way. I got to get off this thing. And when you get there, you will get off.
You're on the high for the high steep one.
Yes, I'm as high as I can go. And this thing gives me a shove, and I go through knocking people down. Excuse me. Yes. And I just made a terrific fool of myself.
You just didn't know how to stop it. You didn't have any training.
No, that's the number one thing you need to learn to ski is how to stop.
Yeah.
Well, problem number 2, I got to go down.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I got to going and hunting a tree to hit. I wanted to run into a tree, anything to stop. Yeah. Because these things, you'll fly, you'll just sprout wings. But all that getting off that thing, and I'm talking about maybe 30, 40 people.
You finally
all standing here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got out of my way. I'm talking about, excuse me, you know.
You didn't hurt your leg or anything.
No, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible.
Did you go again?
I would, but I'd take lessons.
Yeah, but you haven't went since.
No.
I see.
No. It was, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, that sounds like a cool
them
story.
People up on top of that hill won't never forget it either.
Yeah.
So, then trying to get down off that, you'd fall, and You've done everything in the world, you know. I don't know how. I mean, it ain't nothing like water. I can water ski, or used to good.
Right.
But
Not like it.
No, no.
What'd you do? What was your job in the service?
I was a truck driver. At White Sands, it's a missile range.
Mm-hmm.
And they have cameras all over this missile range to take pictures, and very, very expensive cameras. And they're all water cooled. And we had semi trucks and little trucks. And we had a big well that we would go to, and we had to keep these tanks full of water that cooled these cameras. And our job was all day long and we went up in the mountains, several mountains that we had to take those trucks, and all dirt roads.
That was your job.
And but that was our job. I done that for 2 years.
What were they photographing?
These missiles and airplanes. They parachutes that they put on these. They experimented with them.
Mm-hmm.
I know I had a load of water on. I was going down the road, and I looked down the ways there, and here come a giant airplane. And I thought, boy, this dude's awful low.
Yeah.
And just about the time he got over the top of me, he kind of went up a little bit, and I heard an awful explosion. And looked behind, and he had a missile or something on it, and it fell off that airplane right behind the truck.
Oh my God.
Oh, the dust was there for, seemed to me like hours. But they had to experiment all the different flights and different missiles.
Yeah.
And they didn't all land where they were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So. But then where I was at was the impact area. They shot them down range at the White Sands missile range, and they were supposed to come up 115 miles up and impact in area.
Was that all Army, or was the Air Force involved there too?
Mostly Army.
Mostly Army.
Army and civilian.
Uh-huh.
And they'd come in. They had one time they had some sort of missile they was going to shoot, and some special parachute that was supposed to be on this thing. And they was scientists and big officers and stuff come in there. I seen every kind of a helicopter you could imagine, and fixed airplane. They come in there to watch this parachute open and come down. And we was on call, and we was on site, and they was all out there looking. Well, he was down at White Sands, and they shot it, and it went, just done everything it was supposed to, but it went straight up and turned around and come right straight back down. The parachutes and everything I think worked fine, but all this work they done went in vain.
Yes.
It was quite an experience.
Interesting.
But if I had to do it over, I'd go back to the same place and do it all again.
Yeah,
it was good for Judy and I.
Yeah, I bet it was. Huh. Well, tell me a little bit more about Marshfield. I mean, I guess if there's any characters or any other stories that comes up to your mind, around town, or there's got to be some, or even at Webster, like what power storms or power outages or any big tales that you can think of that you shared with some of your colleagues, or
the first ice storm that we ever worked, we were down in the Rogersville area, and it was raining all day, and we started home, and before it all ended, it was awful. Everything was covered in ice. Mm-hmm. And we had nothing to fight it with. We had one old digger truck that had a bucket that went out on the end of it, and we never used it. We had to climb everything.
Everything was
we had these poles, the roads. I mean, I wore out one set of chains. I had them wired together. I wore them out 4 or 5 times. But every pole was covered in ice. Mm-hmm. And when you climbed it, you had to take a hammer and beat you a path up to where it was at. Trees or just down everywhere, lines. Of course, John Q. Public don't understand this. We're out of power and we be working.
Yeah.
But if we went home the first 2 or 3 days of it and just let the storm happen, we'd have been a lot better off, because everything we put up fell back down.
It did.
But toward the end of it, we were just all wore out. We'd worked for several days and nothing to eat and no sleep and
there's just like 5 or 6 of you. I mean, back in those
well,
days.
like we was all out there.
Yeah.
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 The story that the thing that happened that I'll never forget. Guy Clift. Me and 4 or 5 more were working east of Marshfield.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how long we'd been working, but we'd been putting up line and helping everybody we could, and we is hungry and we is tired. And so we pulled into Guy Cliffs, and trees, old soft maples and stuff was just all over the yard. It was just a disaster. So we started to clean things up, try to get this up, and she came out. And she said, how long has it been since you boys eat?
Was that Jewel?
Yes.
Jewel Clift, yeah.
We said, we forgot, we don't know.
Yeah.
She said, you quit.
Yeah.
We had a pheasant by candlelight that night.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, now that's a neat story.
Yeah.
That was out 38
Yes.
and past Sea Highway out there.
Turn at the new Prospect Church and go back there to the T and right there. But we had pheasant by candlelight that night.
That's great.
Boy, it was good.
I bet it was. Wow.
But in later years, what they have done to make things better, and I don't know who come up with this idea, but he needs a crown. When you get in trouble like that, these other co-ops, even from other states, will come to help
coming
you.
in. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
But we finally, Show Me finally sent us a crew, and then we had a crew come from West Plains up to. We didn't work anything. We just wasn't that far along anything hot. And I had a crew, and it was down at Pat Jones's house. And they turned around their buckets, and they had put their rubber gloves and stuff on. And of course, we had lots of weeping willow trees, and they were just a mess. And they went up in the bucket, and I hollered, and I said, "Wait a minute, I'll go turn this off." And they said, "We don't need you to turn it off." And I'm watching up, and a miracle was happening. They was working it hot.
Really?
And in later years, I never did. I was just, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but we had boys that went to school, learn how to work at and put their rubber stuff on. And of course, now then it's getting to the point that computers and everything that we didn't have back then. That we've always had birds, squirrels, and everything to get on the line and make the lights blink.
Right.
Well, now then, John Q. Public won't stand for that, and everything's got to be insulated, and they do. And
of course, people complain about all the right-of-way trimmings and all that, but that is a lifesaver.
It is.
It's so important, and we just need to remember that when bad weather does come.
And there's so much of that out there that you get accused of sitting in the truck or something, but you get out there at night. There's so much, especially over in the Fordland and Diggins area, there's so much of that line over that you have to walk. There's no driving in there.
Is that right?
And and a lot of it around here that way.
Yeah.
And
we don't even think about all that as a John Q. Public, like you say. We just want our lights on, and we do. You guys are. I mean, it was a
every day
appreciative, career that we should all.
There's never no 2 days alike.
Right.
And it's good employment.
Yeah. No, it is. We're blessed to have a great co-op. We've got a great, Show Me being the supplier, the wholesale co-op, or whatever you call it. We're really blessed. Some great jobs around here, some great people.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's a few bumpy roads, bumps in the road, but it's a good life. I liked it. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate your hard work and all of you that did that and are doing it still. It seems like the weather, I don't know, we have ice storms, but we don't have the big snows like we used to. Maybe we will again. It may cycle back, but I guess the ice storms are what's really the
well, this past year, we had a snow. A wet snow is the enemy.
It's the enemy, yeah.
And the last one I remember was years ago. We had a wet storm, and it'll gather up on that line. And a lot of them, you know, and it'll get them out of balance, get the top line way lower, and it's just wet and it accumulates on that. And this last snow was the first one that I had seen in years that was a wet snow that gathered on that
Doing
line.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to have them a lot, but we don't have the wet ones like we
And,
used to. Tell me about your daughter. You have a daughter and a granddaughter, right?
I have a daughter and a granddaughter.
Yeah. Well, tell
My
us about
daughter she's in Mount Vernon, and she's a retired school teacher, been down there 30 years. And she's substituting now, but works about as much as she did.
Yeah.
Granddaughter is I don't really know what she's doing. But she's in Kansas City college. She graduated from MU, top of her class, and she has a master's degree now. And she's working some sort of I say I don't know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something to do with putting nurses and of different calibers around in different hospitals.
Okay.
And then she's got her little side job that she just loves. She's a server at some restaurant in Kansas City.
Oh,
and
yeah.
She likes them tips.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
But she's still single. Boys is not in her eyesight. And
Yeah.
oh, she's 28, I think. You know.
Yeah. I'm sure that you enjoy when they get to come visit.
Oh, yes.
And go visit them
yes.
and so forth.
Oh, yes.
And
Leanne, she travels a little bit. She's got a good friend down there, and they travel a little bit. And
yeah.
Of course, as they've said, you know, once a teacher, always a teacher.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
So I think she's maybe taught substitute all week.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And then Judy worked for many years in the courthouse, and
she worked for Jack Clare for years.
Yeah.
She worked for him at Movie Hut, and she worked for him and Phil when he was collector. She worked for him in the collector's office. I know. I got to learn real quick on the last December, the last day of the month. When she come home from up there, you didn't say how was your day or nothing. You didn't say nothing because they'd had a bad day and collected a lot of money and had a lot of complaints. And,
yeah, nobody wants to pay their taxes.
She's worked for Jack Day and the Clares forever.
Yeah.
In fact, she still works for Randy a little bit. He gets behind with his real estate and some of his book work, and she'll go up there and help him out a little bit.
That's good. Well, I tell you what, we've really enjoyed having you. We've still got a little bit of time, so if there's something you can think of you'd like to share, you know, with the viewing audience, we've had again.
I was thinking today of some stuff. I didn't know what you was gonna ask of me, and some things around the town. One thing that we had the city one time. I was just you think of a lot of things that's not important.
Yeah.
The city hired a guy one time. I won't mention his last name, but he was from Niagara, and they had a time limit that you could be parked on the inside of the square. And they told him, said, you know, we'd like for you to take care of that. So the old man would go around with his watch. And
like a meter maid.
Yeah.
I mean.
And these cars, he'd take and put a chalk mark on their wheel.
Yeah.
And he left tickets on their windshield, and he done that to some that was
didn't
not,
like it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that ever occurred.
Yeah.
So that's been way back there.
But that hardest old man, and he was just trying these big overhauls, and he walked around the square, and he watched his watch, and if you'd been there too long, you got your ticket on there. They put you a little chalk mark.
How you think that'd go over today?
And then another thing that as I was a kid that brought to mind. We used to be the Frisco, went through Marshfield.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
before Burlington Northern,
we had the depot up here.
Mm-hmm.
And they would bring this train would come. They done a lot of switching. I know Grandma would wash every Monday. Grandma cussed the Frisco every Monday. They were coal burners. old choo-choo train.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they would park down here about the Dairy Queen and unhook, and they bring lumber, they bring sand, quite a bit of items to Marshfield and picked up. But anyway, this train would unhook down here, and he'd start that up, his old coal burner. Grandma would have a laundry, we lived at 214 West Madison, back door with the sand. But that thing was already and put that soot in the air.
Oh my!
Cause Grandma she don't talk bad, but she
Right.
talked a little bad about
Yeah.
that soot had come on and get on her laundry.
Absolutely.
Oh, she hates that.
Well, sure. That'd
Well,
be bad.
the Frisco would bring items that people out of Springfield and what have you, and would unload them at the depot. Well, there was an old man in this town. I don't know whether he, back then we didn't know what Amish was, but his last name was Yoder. I remember that. He was a Holy Roller preacher. He had a church up here in the southeast part of town. And he had an old truck, and he would back in there, and the merchandise that was unloaded off the train, he would deliver it around town where it needed.
Right.
And he would sing. You could hear him anywhere around Marshfield singing. Yeah, you'd say, well, here comes Preacher Yoder.
I've never heard that story.
And delivering the merchandise from the Frisco. Yeah, I got my uncle was worked at the Acadia Railroad in Kansas and had kids, and I never did have a bicycle for a long time. And one of his boys outgrowed him, so he disassembled it and sent it by the rail, and I got my bicycle
on the rail.
Mr. Yoder brings me my bicycle.
Yeah. I've never heard that story. That's a good one. That's a good one.
What about the 4th of July?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I tell you about Bob Baldwin and the ice?
No, tell me about it. I knew Bob had the ice plant.
Well, they were right there somewhere about the east end of the Marshfield Mail. There was a building. And Bob Baldwin, see, we had a bunch of kids in town delivered the paper, too. That's where we picked up our papers and folded them.
Well, that's when the mail was on Crittenden Street.
Yeah, but this was Springfield paper.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I see. Yeah.
And we'd fold them and had a way of folding them. And, I went Jackson Street and back up Washington Street.
Okay.
But we also got block ice. And Bob Baldwin sold it. I had a vehicle, and on the 4th of July, a lot of people had ice boxes. Didn't have refrigerators, had ice boxes.
Right.
And Bob would deliver that ice around the 4th. Chop it and put it in blocks. You put it
in an ice box. Yeah.
He done that for years.
That plant was where they just built the new Dollar General over here, right? On Commercial Street? No.
That
was the block plant.
The block,
yeah. But that wasn't where the ice plant was. And where was it at?
It was right there about where the office of the Marshfield Mill is.
Oh, on Clay Street.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Jackson Street.
Jackson
Street.
Marshfield Mill. I thought you said the Marshfield Mail.
Right next.
Okay.
Right next to where Abbott had his oil company.
Yeah, right in there.
It was a building right in there, and he had the ice, and that's where we picked the papers up. And
okay, so on the corner was Chevrolet.
Yes.
And then you had the Abbott's Oil Company.
Yes.
Then the ice deal.
Yeah, and then Marshfield Mill.
And then the mill. And of course, when Pat was on, Pat Abbott, before that, it was the mill there where the mill office is now. That was Lane Produce. Her dad, probably before your memory.
My time.
But her dad, Mr. Lane, had a produce store there, and he bought produce from farmers and then turned around and sold it retail, and then he also sold it, put it on the trains and shipped it to St. Louis.
Okay. The only produce that I can recall is it wasn't MFA. It was Producers Exchange.
Producers Exchange, yeah.
Was where they tore the building down.
Right.
They had a grocery store and a hardware store. In the back, you could drive through and pick up a sack of feed, and they'd also buy your chickens and turkeys and what have you back there.
And your produce.
Back there, yeah. And I know we'd go there, and they would deliver a sack of feed around town if Grandma had chickens.
Yeah.
And I'd get to go with Grandpa to buy the chicken feed, and I got to pick the sack out because that was going to be my new shirt.
Really?
Right.
The white.
Whatever color I wanted.
But yeah.
But
not the burlap, the white,
oh no
the
no
little,
no that's
yeah,
that's
the little,
print.
the print settings.
Yeah, not burlap. But Grandma would make me a new shirt, and I got to go pick a sack out to be my new shirt. Grandma would make me one.
Did it have the logo, the MFA logo
No,
on
no,
it or
no,
anything?
no. He
It
was
was just,
flowered here,
oh, I see.
or whatever
I
I
see.
wanted,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah,
I'll be darned. I never heard
Yeah.
that before. That's
Yeah,
a good,
that was
that's
my
a
new
good
shirt.
story. Yeah. So you had, what about eating places? You had the sweet shop. Now, I guess the Dairy Princess, had it started by the time you, by the time you
yeah,
Judy
he
were
was
dating?
going. The Dairy Queen, Wally McCaskill run
Yeah,
it. It
Dairy
was,
Princess.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
going strong.
Yeah. He built that building new, right? I think.
I
don't think it was.
I was listening, and I might have missed it.
Mhm.
I was listening to you and Tom Farr talking the other day
Yeah.
about over on the east side of the square. Did you ever mention Skeeter Hargis's restaurant?
I don't think we did, but somebody had mentioned Skeeter Hargis, but I don't think
See,
Tom and
you
I
had-
did as we
there
went
on the
around.
cor- There on the corner was Bob's Donuts, and then the sweet shop, and then the style shop, and then Skeeter Hargis had a restaurant there.
Okay. So that's
and then,
where.
And then H.E. Phelan's clothing store.
So it was between the style shop and H.E. Phelan's? Okay. All right. And then what was where Beckerdites, when I was a kid, Beckerdites was in the south half of the Shields building, and
Yeah.
Shields.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was some stairs. I was thinking about this a while ago. There was some stairs that went up over like the Shields building, and there was some offices, but I don't ever remember who owned
Yeah,
them.
those stairs are still there in the middle of the building there, and that Mr. Dickey and I guess Rob Foster manages them or is part owner or whatever, but in that building today. But they redid those offices up there, and I was up there. Well, okay, so whenever I was a boy, you remember when there was an accordion phase? There was some guy come to town and he was teaching accordion lessons. Does that ring a bell?
No.
I'm talking about the mid to late 60s. Ronnie Fraker, my cousin, your good friend,
Yeah.
Ronnie took up this accordion lesson deal, and he talked my dad into it. And we went up there a time or two, and he gave those lessons up there in one of those offices.
Wouldn't have been Carl Gilbert, would it?
I don't know. It might have been. I don't know who it was. I just remember going up there with him, and they were teaching people how to play the accordion. And there'll be somebody on the air here that'll remember that or know more about it, and they can let me know. But
No, I
and there was some real estate. I know there was a real estate office up there. I don't know if it was one of the Prices but there, and I think that sign was still on the door even when Mr. Dickey bought that building back, because I was up there when he first started working on it.
That was one of the few places when I was a kid I didn't sneak up to.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
No.
I never did know what was
Yeah,
up
there
there
was
now.
there was little
There
offices
was
up there.
a doctor's office up over Rathburn's drugstore.
As Dr. CR was up there. He was in the
Well,
building.
and there was a Dr. Leviton up there,
Okay.
because he's the one that come down to our house to check on Mom.
Okay.
And he recommended a doctor in Springfield, and that's when we got her on her feet.
Okay.
Finally.
Well, and I think Dr. Tommy I think his office was in, or CR1 was in the Shields building too.
And then Beetle Barnes was in the basement.
Yeah, that was at the Rathbun building. Yeah. I don't know, but now coming down Crittenden Street, the hotel was on the corner, because we didn't really go down that street the other day with Tom. The hotel was on the corner, and then you had, of course, the Jarrett's building. Jarrett's built that. That was just I think a vacant lot, wasn't it, or something in there? Or do you remember that?
I remember the Jarrett's building,
Yeah.
but I don't remember how it got there.
Okay.
Yeah, Jarrett's Bender Boys.
And then north of that was the Marshfield Mail. And then the post office was in my old building.
Where was Drum Rights?
Well, it was in there between, the Marshfield Mail,
Yeah, the
and
Marshfield
then
Mail.
Drum Rights.
Right.
And then the shoe store, and then the post office, according to Tom. Post office is in the building that later became the shoe store.
We got to put sanitary barbershop in there or something.
Yeah, the barbershop was in there too. Yeah.
And because I remember the Davis shoe store, I used to like to go get my shoes there because you got they was stamps come Black Rooster.
Oh yeah.
Stamps come with it, and if you got enough stamps,
Yeah.
you could go back and get a prize. I know I got enough one time and got a pair of roller skates that clamped on my
Really?
shoes. Yeah.
Black Rooster. I never heard of
Yeah,
that. I've
Black
heard of
Rooster-
S&H green
Black
stamps.
Black Rooster stamps,
Yeah.
and you got them with your purchase. You got so many stamps,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I gathered enough of them. I've still got the old skates
Huh.
someplace. You clamped on the bottom of your and strapped under, and you get out on the
Yeah.
concrete.
Yeah. Can you remember as a kid, like you said, you was talking about all those businesses being open at night, the barber shop, and Mary Ruth Brooks told me, like I think she worked at Shields or Rathbun's one, and after ball games they would stay open even later, because people would want to come in and get a soda from the
Right.
soda fountain and stuff like that. You can remember all that, I'm sure. Yeah.
I don't remember the sodas and stuff, but I remember they all stayed open.
Stayed open
especially
late.
on Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Marshfield was, of course, Marshfield and Iowa Combat, they was all good little towns
Oh,
and
yeah.
had a lot of going on, but Marshfield was the one as a kid that I remember, and
Mm-hmm.
we had a one-man police department, Don Bruce.
Mm-hmm. He was the night watchman.
He was night watchman there all night, and he was busy,
Mhm.
especially on Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And but Marshfield was alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
They would be the Ritz Theater would be a double feature, and they would be as many people coming out after the first show and trying to get and the people going in.
Going
to
back
see
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then on the corner, why, of course, Gene Fraker had the him and Noel had the station,
Yep.
and it was very busy.
Yep. Did you see the show with Champ Heron the other day we had on?
Yes,
Did you hear him talking about the stockade under the service station there?
I heard him, but I didn't.
You never heard anything
Uh-uh.
about that? I hadn't either. That was a new one for me.
Mm-mm.
So I think he's still doing some more research on that. But he had the newspaper clip. He showed it to me. It was certainly in the paper back in whenever that was, 1890s or something. That he had a
Well,
picture
and
of it.
too, where Bill Crawford started, he started a tar shop.
Mm-mm.
Of course, I've been doing some research that bothered me. Pierce Motor Company.
Yes.
And I went to the library the other day, and I've got it hanging on my building board. I was going to bring it, and I forgot it.
Yeah.
Of Pierce. Well, Pierce went out of business.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for the highway department then, and in one of the rooms behind it, that
Mhm.
was a place where Sir Pierce,
Shop. Mhm.
Bill Crawford opened these tire
That's where he
shops up there.
started. Okay.
Because I was working for the highway department, and we'd take them old oily, greasy tires
Mhm.
up there and build, break them down.
Come
Hard
off
working.
the door. Come off the north. Off the
Yes,
north. That's
yes.
where Phil Bicycle was for years in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But that's where Bill Crawford
So-
started out.
Did Pierce sell that Ford dealership to Lily Williams? And then they built the Lily Williams.
could
It was
be.
the timing was about the
Yeah,
same.
and then it moved.
And then they built the new building out there.
Yeah.
I didn't ever know if
Then,
they sold it or.
Howard Scott, then he had it and sold used cars there for a while, and he had a lot over. He built a lot over there.
North Crittenden.
Yeah, and then he went down there and built that
Yeah.
new building and had sold Ramblers.
But he sold some cars there at the back of the Ford.
Yes.
Off that lot back behind
he worked out
Otasco.
of there for a while, and then he went over here on the corner to where Becker Dot Music
Yeah.
was a vacant
I
lot.
knew that.
And he had his
Had
used
some
car
cars
lot over
there.
And in fact, that might have been Pierce's used car lot.
Might have been when they had the car dealership. But you remember when Pierce Motor was Pierce
Yes,
Motor.
barely.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah.
But it bothered me. You go out there right now and somebody is sandblasted and stuff, and I could never. I remember it being there, but I
Mhm.
couldn't make it out.
Yeah.
And I went to the library, and I found a picture of it, and I've got it at home.
Barbara
at
and Champ.
Pierce Motor Company.
Barbara and Champ own that and that building now down through that strip of buildings, but
But
Herons. But
yeah, Janet, she was in my class. That was
Aileen.
Herman's daughter.
Oh yeah. Okay. Was Joe Lurvy in your class, or was he your behind you? He was in yours.
Yes.
Okay. 60.
Yes. They went to high school there. They went to Northview, I guess, in grade school. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
come to-
Yeah.
Which had several kids that went to country school and then went to Marshfield High School.
Yeah, and all that consolidation it happened in 65 is when that they did away with the rural, but 60, the year you graduated, is the year they actually opened the new or built the new Hubble
Mhm.
Elementary. So things were really starting to change and move a lot in those days.
This place has really changed.
It has, the
It
growth. I guess it's 2:00, isn't it? Yeah, 2:00.
Well,
Wayne, I appreciate you coming in.
Well,
This
I've
is
enjoyed
great.
it.
It's great. We've got more history we can put on the cloud here that we'll be able to, when we're all done with this, well, we're not going to be done. I'm going to keep doing it, but we might compile it some way in a book or something. I still like the video though. I like the one-on-one conversation because we think of things and it's just more like having a conversation than a book. But we may we'll see. We'll just want to keep doing it.
Well,
And if anything you can think of going forward, holler
I
at me.
talk too much, but I've enjoyed it.
Well, good. I'm glad you came by, and everybody's got a story, and
Yeah.
everybody's, we're all characters in the town. We're all characters of some sort. We're all part of the history.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's got a piece of history that we contribute. So we want to get that documented.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. So
Things have changed. Places have closed, and
yeah.
Baxter Milky Way Dairy's
Yes,
gone, and
yes.
Pete Me Neely's John Deere tractor's gone. And,
They were out on the west edge of town back then.
yeah, well, yeah. I remember Warren Beck. You could hear him of a morning out with his little bottles, clean to clean, delivered milk and picking empties up. And
Yeah. Amazing
time goes on.
Yeah, it does. It's amazing how fast too.
And what I just got through telling about the Bob Baldwin and the block ice, and block ice is unheard of anymore.
I would have really enjoyed being able to visit with Wayne Galbraith. Didn't get to do that. I actually had him on a list, but didn't work out. But I know he would have had some great stories.
Oh yes.
And
That's his life, yes.
But there's a lot of guys around and gals, and we're going to continue to do this, and so
I love it.
Keep sharing ideas
I
and
enjoy it.
Passing the word. Appreciate you coming in. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you for inviting me.
You betcha. We'll see you next week. Christmas, 2 days before Christmas. And, see ya.